Russian forces were on the verge of a major military defeat Friday as Kyiv's armed forces closed in on the occupied Ukrainian city of Lyman and appeared hours away from trapping thousands of Russian troops in an encirclement. Even if the city isn't already enveloped, all the routes or roads out of the city are under Ukrainian artillery fire, said military analyst Konrad Muzyka at Poland-based Rochin Consulting. Without Russian reinforcements, the city and the entire area is going to fall to Ukraine, he told the Moscow Times. A key supply hub for Russian forces, the stronghold of Lyman, which sits to the north of the Donets River in the north of Ukraine's Donetsk region, has been the site of fierce fighting in recent weeks as Ukraine seeks to press forward with a counteroffensive. Following the recapture of Kharkiv region from Russia earlier this month, Ukrainian forces have been pressuring the city from the northwest via the small town of Drobysheva and from the southeast through the village of Dubrova. Lyman was in a half-encirclement. The Moscow-installed head of the self-proclaimed Donetsk People's Republic Denis Pushilin admitted in a Telegram post Friday, "Our guys are fighting, we're sending in reserves and we should be able to last it out, but the enemy has also committed significant forces. It's very unpleasant news." Russian pro-war bloggers have expressed increasing alarm about the vulnerability of Russian forces in Lyman on messaging app Telegram since late Thursday. By midnight, the Ukrainian armed forces managed to actually complete the encirclement of Lyman, pro-Kremlin blogger Rybar posted early Friday morning. And pro-Kremlin journalist Semyon Pegov described the situation as increasingly difficult for Russian forces. Ukraine has taken control of the Torskoy-Drobyshevo highway, Russia's last supply and egress route out of the city toward the largely Russian-occupied Luhansk region, U.S. think tank the Institute for the Study of War said in a report late Thursday. It is unclear how many Russian troops could end up being trapped in and around Lyman, although some believe there could be thousands. Russian units deployed to the area reportedly include Russia's 752nd Motorized Rifle Regiment, a mechanized infantry brigade from the 20th Guards Combined Arms Army as well as parts of Russia's Bars 13 detachment, a volunteer group. The situation is still extremely difficult. The enemy does not stop trying to repel us from Drobysheva. The enemy outnumbers us many times. Attacks are made by infantry with the support of artillery and aviation, the commander of the Bars 13 detachment, Sergei Fomchenkov, said Friday in an interview with the state-run RT network. Nevertheless, Bars 13 adamantly holds its positions. Because the wetlands around Lyman do not lend themselves to effective tank warfare, much of the fighting is likely being carried out by infantry and artillery, said Muzyka. Lyman, which sits on a key rail crossroads, is one of Russia's last lines of defense before the Donetsk region's eastern border with Luhansk. Together, Donetsk and Luhansk regions, known as the Donbass, are a key war aim for the Kremlin. Despite the looming threat of encirclement, Russian forces have refused to pull troops out of Lyman in what Muzyka said is likely a tactic to buy time. Observers believe that Moscow will attempt to use the additional manpower raised as a result of President Vladimir Putin's partial mobilization announced last week to shore up its defenses in occupied Ukraine. Some of these newly mobilized men have already been deployed to the battlefield, including to positions around Lyman, according to Ukraine's armed forces. The enemy continues to send newly mobilized, low-skilled personnel to the areas of combat operations, Ukraine's general staff said Thursday in a statement. By continuing to fight in Lyman, according to Muzyka, Russia can tie down Ukrainian forces while it trains and deploys new recruits to defensive lines ahead of an expected battle for Severodonetsk, a major city east of Lyman that fell to Russian forces in June. But at the same time, the encirclement of a large Russian force, especially following Putin's declaration Friday that Russia was annexing Ukraine's Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson and Zaporizhia regions, would be a symbolic and military blow. The long-term significance of the loss of Lyman will depend on how successfully Moscow can withstand the next wave of attacks by Ukrainian forces, which are seeking to advance further into the Donbass. This will definitely be a tactical setback, Muzyka said. But whether we're looking at a strategic failure will depend on if there is a massive collapse of Russian lines in Luhansk in the next couple of weeks. The Ukrainian military spokesperson said the capture of Lyman would allow Kyiv to advance into the Luhansk region, whose full capture Moscow announced at the beginning of July after weeks of slow, grinding advances. Lyman is important because it is the next step towards the liberation of the Ukrainian Donbass. It is an opportunity to go further to Kreminna and Severodonetsk, and it is psychologically very important, he said. The operation around Lyman is still underway and Russian troops are mounting unsuccessful attempts to break out of the encirclement, Cherevatyi said. Some are surrendering, they have a lot of killed and wounded, but the operation is not yet over, he said. Ukraine's exiled governor of Luhansk said Russian forces had sought safe passage out of the encirclement, but Ukraine rejected the request. The Ukrainian General Staff told Reuters it had no such information. Putin proclaimed the Donbas regions of Donetsk and Luhansk and the southern regions of Kherson and Zaporizhia to be Russian land in Friday's ceremony. A swath of territory equal to about 18% of Ukraine's total surface land area. Ukraine and its Western allies branded Russia's move as illegal. Kyiv vowed to continue liberating its land of Russian forces and said it would not hold peace talks with Moscow while Putin remained as president. A report from ISW, the US-based think tank, assessed the state of the war on Friday and predicted the city would fall within days, potentially dealing a significant blow to Putin's claim of controlling the region. The report cited Russian military bloggers who described a chaotic retreat from the area by Russian troops, while also criticizing the Kremlin for not sending necessary reinforcements to Lyman and instead firing rockets at Mykolaiv Oblast. Ukrainian forces will likely capture or encircle Lyman within the next 72 hours, the ISW assessment stated. Russian forces continued to withdraw from positions around Lyman on September 30th as Ukrainian forces continued to envelop Russian troops in the area. Russian correspondents and the Russian-backed government in the Donetsk People's Republic reportedly said that Lyman was still controlled by Russian forces as of Friday but that troops had withdrawn from key positions. Russian sources also reportedly claimed that Moscow was still bringing additional reserves to reinforce Russian positions near Lyman. Earlier on Friday, the Russian-appointed governor of Donetsk, Denis Pushilin, acknowledged in a telegram message that Ukrainian forces had taken the upper hand. "Our guys are fighting, we are pulling up reserves, we must hold out. But the enemy has also thrown serious forces," Pushilin wrote. "Very unpleasant news, but we must look soberly at the situation and draw." Putin declared in a speech from Moscow on Friday that residents of Ukraine's Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhia and Kherson regions would be Russian citizens forever following annexation. Justin Bronk, senior research fellow at Royal United Services Institute, a British defense and security think tank, told the media that Ukraine retaking Lyman would be politically embarrassing for Putin, given his annexation claim. More significantly, perhaps, will be the potential role effects on already shaken morale among Russian troops elsewhere in Ukraine, Bronk added. Assuming the encirclement results in large-scale Russian personnel and materiel losses on top of those suffered in Kharkiv Oblast over the past month. Thank you very much for watching. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons so you can be alerted to our next video. We'll see you again soon on Warzone.